Take one, take two. That's how numbers work. Take two. Hello and welcome to Stitches and Starlight. My name is Tashiana, but you can call me Tashi because that's what all my friends do, and we're friends now. I'm coming to you from my home in Brooklyn that I share with my husband Joshua and our two hell kittens, actual cats, not humans, Minerva and Astoria. And this is my corner of the internet where we talk about all the things that I'm knitting and spinning and sewing and potentially weaving. It is just fiber joy and wool chaos all the time. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for clicking on the thumbnail. There are a million voices vying for your attention on the internet, and you saw whatever this is. Who knows these days, and decided to give it a go, and that makes you a rad human. If you're a returning viewer, you already know what time it is. Welcome back to the channel. You guys, hello again. It has been 2 weeks. It is 2 weeks, and I've returned. Hold your applause. Hold your applause. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's been 2 weeks, and I have some stuff to show you, and I'm back. First off, right off the top, thank you so much for your super kind and thoughtful comments on the previous video. I was overwhelmed, so full of so much emotion. Most of it was gratitude, so much just like camaraderie, so many good things in the comments. So thank you so much for your super kind comments, for all the well wishes, for all the people just like rooting for me. I really appreciate you, and it's a real joy to be. Again, we're not going to say I'm back. We're going to say here. It's a real joy to be here in this space. So thank you. Let's do some housekeeping up top because I always forget to do this. If you want to connect with me on Instagram or Ravelry or Substack, all the links to those things are in the description box. That is a thing we call. Yes, all those things are in the description box if you want to support the channel. My Ko-Fi is also in the description box. Everything that I talk about will be linked in the description box below. I think. Oh, also, you know, like, comment, subscribe, do all the YouTube things. If you like what you see here and you want to come back and find more, do the things, ring the bell, all the stuff. Okay, YouTube things done. Because I always forget to do it, and then I'm like, I'll do it at the end, and I never do it at the end. So we're doing it at the beginning for as many times as I remember, which will probably be none. This might be the only time. But yes, YouTube things. Thing two. Thing three. The next thing, I'm wearing my weekend slipover by Petite Knit. I did knit this out of Handspun. This is yarn that I processed myself. The sheep's name was Elsie May. And this is a fin yarn that I blended with some comb top from Nest Fiber. And then for the body of it, I held double with silk mohair. And then for the neckline, this thing, I think it's called the neckline. For the neckline and the sleeve ribbing, I held it single. So that's what I'm wearing, but it might not stay on very long because it's hot. It was actually pretty cold this morning. And so I was like, oh, I'll put on some wool for my podcast. It is hot. So I think I'm starting to sweat. Ooh, I mean, if I look extra glowy today, it's cause your friend is glistening. We're glistening. And so we'll see how long this stays on. I have on one of my husband's sweat t-shirts under this. So if this comes off halfway through it, it's a t-shirt referring to The Name of the Wind, which if you're a fantasy reader and you've never read The Name of the Wind, it's an excellent book. Wise Man's Fear is a sequel, Pat Rothfuss, blah, blah. If you're a fantasy reader and you're not familiar with the series, highly recommend you check it out. But yeah, if this sweater goes off, it's because I'm dying. We should talk about things. All right. I have no finished objects to share. I have a lot of WIPs. So we're going to talk about the things that I've worked on. Most of them, all of them you've seen before, but I've made a fair amount of progress. And then we're going to talk about some future plans. And then that'll be done. So today might be a shorter episode. Famous last words. But today might be a shorter episode, but to the WIPs. To the WIPs. These are in no particular order. They're literally just the order that I'm picking them up and showing them to you. And so the first thing we're going to talk about is my stick season, because the last time I showed it to you, I had literally just picked up a sleeve. It has two. It has two sleeves, you guys. We have two sleeves. We are fully done with sleeves. We are no longer on Sleeve Island. So all this needs is the neckline? That's what we're going to call it. I don't know what it's called in patterns, but all this needs is the neckline ribbing, and then I'll have a finished sweater. Now, in theory, I could have had this done because I finished this sleeve 3 days ago, but instead of finishing this sweater, I just moved on to something else. So I was like, I'm done with this yarn. I'm done with this sweater. So yes, this is the Stick Season by Rebecca Clow. I am knitting a size 5. which I picked, it would give me 5 inches of positive ease. And I'm knitting this from Wool Dreamers Moda in the color 246, which is this delightful bricky, rusty orange color. This is my power color. Like, I have a few power colors, or like mustard and olive green. This is my power color. I think this is going to look super good on my skin tone. And honestly, I might get it done this weekend and get it blocked, because it is, I don't know when you're watching this, but today is February 22nd in the year of our Lord 2025. Depending on when the cat overlords let you have TV time, you could be watching this in the year 3000. You could be watching this in the year 2032, and you're rooting for the asteroid just as much as I am rooting for the asteroid. And this might be your last hurrah, but it is still winter here in New York City, and so I'm hoping to get this done so that I can wear it at least 2 or 3 times before it gets too warm in Brooklyn for a wool sweater. But I'm so pleased with this. I did try it on. After I put the sleeves on. And the sleeves, I don't know how much I expect this to block, but the sleeves are short. I knit it exactly to pattern, so I knit a 15-inch sleeve with a 2-inch cuff, and I'm hoping that this relaxes and stretches a little bit, because as it stands on me, the sleeve hits right about here. So they're not even bracelet length. They're just short. I don't know that I know how long a sleeve should be for my body, which is probably a thing that I should measure and actually have information on, instead of just following pattern instructions willy-nilly and hoping for the best. But if it doesn't block out to bracelet length, I'll just push the sleeves up when I wear it. But yeah, when I did try it on, the sleeves are a little bit short. The body is just cropped, like just about cropped on me. I'm 6 feet tall for reference, so anything knit to pattern is going to be cropped on me. On the bright side, I like cropped sweaters. I could always add length if I want to, but I don't. I like a cropped sweater. I wear a lot of high-waisted jeans and high-waisted trousers. So I think a cropped sweater moment is a good fit for me. So that's where we are. So I'm going to pick up the stitches. It is a folded neckline? I don't know why this is so hard. It is a folded neckband, so it's going to be a lot of ribbing, and then you fold it over and then you seam it, but then we're done. But my stick season, which has been on my needles since November 11th, 2023, will finally get off. I'm so happy to finally have this done. It's so pretty. It's going to be so good. It's going to be so good. Update number 2. That's how numbers work. Update number 2. So the last time I showed you my Felia Cardigan by Irene Lynn, I had knit the back, one front, and I was working on the second front. Well, you guys, here's where we are. I have finished the front. I have joined the front and I've joined the body. I've knit the body. I've knit the ribbing, and I have picked up the neckband, the button band. It's not a button band. Whatever this is. What are the words today? I've picked that up. So all I have left are the sleeves, and the sleeves on this are like microscopic. You literally knit 6 rows of lace, and then you knit 14 rows of ribbing. And that's literally all I have left to have this done. I'm so excited about this. I am so excited about this. So this is the Felia Cardigan by Irene Lynn. I'm knitting this in Derirum Natura Cyrano in the color Tempet, which is, you know, a dark, like a blue, like a gray blue, a dark navy. And I am really excited to have this in my wardrobe. It is, it's going to grow. I mean, it's very short, but it's going to, like, imagine when that lace is blocked, it's going to do something like this. It's going to grow considerably. Now, the size I knit is supposed to have 30 inches of positive ease. And when I tried it on, there's a lot of ease, and it's not even blocked, because imagine that lace is going to do that. That's what's going to happen when it gets blocked. That lace is going to do that, and it's going to do that. I did knit the extended pattern because it's cropped in pattern, and so I was like, oh, that will be too cropped on me. So I did knit the extended pattern, which literally just has one more lace repeat. It adds about 3 inches to the body, and then everything else I did knit to pattern. I'm knitting this on 10.5s. 10.5s for the lace, 9s for the ribbing, and I am super excited. When I showed this to you, I told you guys that this would be a 2-week sweater. If I was monogamously working on this, I would have this done in a week, because I've only worked on it, I think, like maybe 3 days in the last 2 weeks, and I got this much done. Because once you get going on this, it's super easy. The lace is super easy, and then the wrong side rows are just purl stitches. So once you get going, it's pretty easy. In fact, the worst part of it is how big the needles are. They're a little bit uncomfortable to hold. I'm lying. I'll tell you what the worst part is. This is I-cord hell. That's what this is. This pattern is I-cord hell. Now, if you like knitting an I-cord bind off, then maybe it's not I-cord hell for you. But for me, it's I-cord hell. The bind-offs in this, I had to do in multiple stages. I kept playing this game with myself where I was like, if I do 5 bind-off, if I bind off 5 stitches, then I'll bind off 10 stitches. And if I bind off 10 stitches, then I'll bind off 20 stitches. And I had to keep playing these mind games with myself because I hate knitting an I-cord bind-off. Now, it looks great. All things considered, it looks pretty good. My pickup work looks okay here. And I think the I-cord bind-off on the ribbing, I think it's pretty solid. Does that mean I enjoyed knitting it? No. I thought it was the 9th circle of hell, and I wanted to be done with it. That's part of the reason why I did this non-button band before I did the sleeves, because I knew that this was going to be the next slog in this bind off. And then the sleeve stitches, I think it's only like 40 stitches for a sleeve. So once it gets down to there, that bind off is going to be much more, well, I guess much less arduous. But yeah, no, this is I-cord bind off hell. It's a delightful cardigan. I'm really excited about it, and I can't wait to wear it because I think this is it's gonna transition well through spring based on what I put underneath it. So I think it'll just be a good basic to have in my wardrobe. This color is going to work really well with everything. And my plan is, I think I talked about this last time, to throw like a crop t-shirt or like a bodysuit. Like in the winter right now, I could put a turtleneck. And then like during the spring, I could throw a crop t-shirt or a bodysuit underneath it. And it's going to be a piece that's going to get me through the next few months. Until like May when it's too warm for wool. Especially because it's so lacy. Now it is a bulky weight yarn. So it does have some like weight to it, but because it's lacy and like full of holes, it's just going to be really breathable. It's going to be a really good piece. I almost want to make, as much as I hate knitting with cotton, I almost wonder how this would work in a cotton yarn during the summer. Or like, go with me. Like a pair of linen Arthur pants by So Liberated, or even like double gauze Arthur pants by So Liberated. So like really oversized balloony Arthur pants and a cropped t-shirt, and then this knit in a bulky cotton yarn and like a sun hat for like peak coastal grandma. I can't knit with cotton, but if any of you could knit with cotton yarn and could recreate that outfit for me, I would be eternally grateful. I would be eternally grateful. So yes, this is the progress I've made on my Felia cardigan so far, and I'm really enjoying the knitting of it. I really like this yarn. I mean, I've raved enough about the Derirum Natura family of yarns, but this is my first time knitting with Cyrano, and it's been going great. It's going great. Okay, one last sweater WIP to show you. This is my study session pullover by my friend Sam. Samantha Guerin, but her name is my friend Sam. And this is where we are. So the last time I showed it to you, I had just joined it in the round. So I had just been at the start of the V-neck. I have since finished the body, and I'm losing stitches. Hold, please. I finished the body. I looked down, I was like, oh no, we are losing stitches. I finished the body and I've knit two rounds on the ribbing. I've just started the ribbing. It is a 3-inch rib hemline. So there's gonna be a lot of ribbing ahead of me. So here's where we are. This is what it looks like. It has this delightful cable lace textured center panel. And then the rest of it is stockinette, so it's stockinette across the back. I'm knitting mine out of Derirum Natura, needles, please. Derirum Natura Ulisse in the color Darjeeling. And it is giving me like librarian, just like saucy librarian vibes. If I could wear layers without like melting to death, I would put this over like a white button, like a crisp white Oxford. But that much, anything against my skin will make me crazy. But the plan is, the pattern has you knit a double layer V-neck. So like a thick ribbed V-neck, and then you fold it in and you tack it down. And then I haven't decided if I'm going to do the tapered sleeve or the full sleeve or the tapered sleeve. I'm going to knit the collar first. That's the word, collar. What? I can't believe that took so long. Collar. I'm going to knit the V-neck collar first. And then I'm going to decide if I do the taper sleeves or the full sleeves. I'm leaning towards the tapered sleeves because the idea of full sleeves feel a bit too romantic and too feminine for me. And I just think I would get more wear out of it if I did a tapered sleeve, which is what I normally do on my knits versus the full sleeve. But I think I'm going to do the ribbing, knit the collar, and then make a choice. I'm knitting this on US 7s, which is the needle size recommended for the pattern. My gauge is a little bit off from Sam's. So I think the pattern was like 19 stitches and I got 17. So what I did was I sized down. So instead of knitting a size 5, which is the size that would give me like 4 inches of positive ease. I sized down to a size 4 since my gauge was a little bit off, and I'm going to end up with a size between 4 and 5. I did like the math. I did the math, and it would end up being like, I think like 3/4 of an inch smaller than like what a size 5 would be. So as long as I get close to size 5, I'll be fine. As I was knitting this, I did check my gauge multiple times. And if you've ever worked with the Durirum Natura family of yarn, they bloom a lot in the washing. So I checked my gauge multiple times as I was knitting it. Same as my gauge pre-blocking, which means that this is going to be just fine. And I cannot wait to have this done. The yarn is a sport, like a heavy sport weight, and knit on 7s at such like, it's not necessarily an open gauge, but it's an airy gauge, is making a really squishy fabric. I'm going to live in this. I'm going to live in this. And I want to knit more sweaters at this gauge with this yarn because it's so loft. It's so soft and airy is what I was trying to say. And it has a lot of loft. It is lofty. Yeah, so that's where we are. I'm really excited about how this is going and how this is working out. And we'll see. I think by the next time I see you, I should at least have the collar done and maybe be working on a sleeve. And I literally cannot wait. Oh, here's my progress keeper. This is by Hello Lavender and Little Fiber Co. from their monochrome collection that they did last year. I have a bunch of these like fun little progress keepers, and this is the cherry one. And it's one of my favorites. So yes. So this is my study session by Samantha Guerin. The last time I showed it to you, the pattern wasn't out. It is out, and I will have it linked in the description box. And the last knitting WIP I have to share is not a garment. It is my book bag project. So last time I talked to you guys about having a project in my book bag on the go, and I showed you my Hoarfrost shawl, and it was like somewhere here. Well, here's where we are. We are zooming. So I have since finished all the texture. That's what that is. And we are now onto the lace panel. I have about 40 rows left of this, and then this is going to be finished, and then I'm going to be wearing it, and I'll be deciding on a new book bag project. So again, this is the Hoarfrost Shawl by Andrea Mowry. I'm knitting it from Isire Jensen yarn, which is a DK weight yarn. This pattern is written for a worsted weight yarn, but this is what I had, and this is what I decided to use, and it is making the squishiest fabric. The larger part of the shawl is done in this like 3x1 rib. Is it a broken rib? I don't know what this pattern texture is called. It's not quite a broken rib. It's a fun 3x1 texture. I did end up charting it. So the pattern is written out, and I ended up charting just at least the ribbed part using a website called Stitch Fiddle, because referring back to the written instructions was ending me. And all of the lace is written out, and I started charting it, but it just took too long to chart it. So now I'm just working off of the written instructions. I think I would have been happier with a chart. I will say that. Especially since the lace is the same every row, you're just offsetting it, right? So which is I think like normal of lace. It is the same stitch pattern every single row, just offset. So that's how you're getting these like leaves. And I think I would have been happier if the pattern was charted, because it's 88 rows of lace, and then the pattern has every single row written out. Well, except the wrong side rows, because the wrong side rows you're just purling, but every single row is written out. So I have to like stop and read and digest what like all of the words say. And I think I work better from charts. But I didn't have the energy to turn that 88 row lace situation into a chart. So I'm working off of the pattern. Oh, and here's my progress keeper. Here's another one. This is also from Hello Lavender and Little Fiber Co. And this is from the oyster color. So yeah, no, I actually unsubscribed like 8 months into the year, because I was just getting inundated with fiber, and I did miss the fiber coming in, and I did miss the stitch markers. I got all the way up until I think like ganache. So I think I missed the last 3 or 4 months. But having these little progress keepers to like remind me of that fun collection was like a really smart thing. I'm really glad I did it. I'm really glad that Lauren and Reshma partnered on that collection, because they're just really fun, and the way that they both interpreted those colors. That's not what we're talking about here, but I really like having the progress keeper. So yes, this is my book bag project. I probably have maybe a week or a week and a half left on this. I pull it out when I'm stopping after work, or if I'm on the train, or if I'm just sitting still too long, I pull it out, and then I'll be thinking about what I'm going to cast on next. I'm kind of contemplating casting on a hat. Knitting on a shawl in public is a lot. I do like fold it into my lap, and so I can like, as long as it's in my lap, I can knit on it, but like on the subways, it's a lot to pull out a shawl. When the shawl was smaller, I could pull it out on the train, but now there's a lot of knitting here, and it's a lot to pull out on the train, and so there's a lot of shawl here. And so I think my next book bag project might either be like a cowl or a hat, something that's smaller and more contained. I kind of want it to just be another shawl because I like knitting. I never thought I was gonna like knitting shawls, but I really like knitting shawls. And I like wearing them. I've worn my soft focus in the last 2 weeks, maybe 5 times. I just keep pulling it out. I wear it all the time. And so I like wearing shawls. And so I'm just like, maybe I cast on another shawl. Maybe I do a crescent shawl next. Maybe that's what I do, because these are both triangles. And maybe I do a crescent shawl and see if I like the shape of a crescent shawl, because a crescent shawl is wider than it is long. And so it might be a better project. It does mean that the rows are going to be endless. Like, the rows are going to be so long. I don't think that that's for me. I take it back. I think I stick to my triangles where there are more rows, but the rows are probably shorter. Yeah, I think I stick to triangles. Maybe one of these days, maybe my next book bag project will be a crescent shawl, and we'll see. But for now, here's my hoarfrost that is immediately getting rolled up and put back in my book bag I'm actually going to get my hair done tomorrow, and I have to go all the way to Harlem to do it, which from where I live in Brooklyn is 90 minutes on the subway. So it's 90 minutes on the subway there, 2.5 hours to do my hair, and 90 minutes on the subway home. That is 5 hours. If this is not almost done by then, well, I'm not going to force myself to knit on it if I don't want to, but there is a high chance that this might be almost done in 5 hours of commuting and sitting under a dryer and having someone tame my hair. So here's my Hoarfrost by Andrea Mowry. So we're going to talk about future plans right now, because I have 2 hand-spun sweaters that one I'm ready to cast on, one is still in the preparation phase. So I mentioned Large Marge to you guys last time about how I was going to knit the double date sweater, and I didn't have a skein, but here's Large Marge. Here's what her yarn looks like. And I said I was going to knit the double date sweater from her, and then I was scrolling through Instagram like you do, and I saw the Rust sweater pattern by Trin Annalee, and I almost lost my mind. It is a textured yoke and then stockinette body, and I checked the yardage, and I have just enough. So just under. So the sweater's knit on 7s, 8s. I don't remember, but I swatched on the recommended needle size, and my gauge is like 2 stitches off, but in my favor. So I think the gauge was like 19. Again, I think the gauge was like 19 stitches, and it is on 8s, because it was 19 stitches on 8s. And when I swatched, I got 17 on 8s, and instead of swatching down, I love the fabric here, but if I size down, I have enough yarn. So here's the swatch. And Marge just knit up beautifully. I mean, this yarn is so special. It's not my first full fleece project. It's actually my second full fleece project, but this yarn is so special, and I've had it in my stash for such a long time. I spun this in October 2022. And while my spinning has technically gotten better since then, it's really good knitting yarn. It's really, really good knitting yarn. Marge is a CVM Cotswold Rambouillet Corriedale Cross. The yarn is like next to skin soft. Like, I could wear this against my face. I have no prickle. And so this is what I'm going to cast on as soon as I finish my Felia Caridgan. I'm going to cast this on, and I'm going to work on this, and it's going to be my first fully hand-processed, hand-spun. Actually, it's my first hand-spun garment, period. I normally use my hand-spun as... No, this is my first fully hand-processed, hand-spun garment. I'm losing my mind. It's going to be my first hand-spun, hand-processed sweater, I guess, because this is my first hand-spun, hand-processed garment. I'm like wearing it, and I forgot that I made it as I wear it. But this will be my first hand-spun, hand-processed sweater. And I'm really excited about this. So this is what I'm going to cast on as soon as I get my Felia off the needles. This yarn, it blocked so nicely. Like, I knit the swatch, and I was like, okay, because this yarn is it's like a touch over. It's a touch over. I shared about this when I was working on it. I spun it at 15 to 1. and forgot to drop the ratio when I applied it. I was like, what happened here? I forgot to drop the ratio when I applied it. Now, normally when I apply down a ratio, and I forgot to drop the ratio when I applied it, and it ended up a touch over, and I could have taken some twist out, but I didn't think it was like necessary enough. So it is a touch over. And so as I was knitting with it, I was like, is this a better outerwear yarn because it's a touch crisp? And then I blocked it, and it's baby soft. Now, I don't know if this is like wearable for everybody. Actually, I think everybody could wear this. I honestly think if you wear wool, you can wear this. But I am super happy with this. I'm super happy with how this swatch blocked out. And I think it's going to make a brilliant sweater. And also it'll just be nice to, again, knit with something that I made from start to finish. Like I, had Marge's fleece, washed her, scoured her. I carded this before I had my mechanical carder. So I carded this entire half fleece on my tiny little brother carder in like, 50-gram bats. And I got 1,250. I think that's what I have. Like somewhere between 1,250 and 1,300 yards of like three ply heavy DK weight yarn. And I cannot wait for it to grow up and be a sweater. So yes, that is my first hand spun sweater plans, and now we're going to talk about the second one. So my second sweater is the Potato Vodka by Thea Coleman, which is a mosaic cardigan. And the second I saw it, I was like, the thing that happens to me every time I see Spin Cycle or Primrose or Junction or any of those color changing yarns used in a garment, the thing that happens every time I see one of those garments and I want to make it is I go, I could spin for that. Like, I am not about to spend money on color changing yarn anymore. Not when I have comb top coming out of every orifice and I know how to spin. It seems silly. So the first thing I thought was I could spin for that. And I had every intention of only spinning the contrast color. I've fully gone off the deep end. So let's talk about that. So here's my contrast color. This is a combo spin of Bud Break and Feed Your Soul dyed by Wee Chickadee on Polworth. And I spun this on my flat iron, and so I probably could have applied it on my big bobbin, but I applied it on my, like, the little 4-ounce bobbins, and so I have a bunch of, like, I have this, like, silly little mini skein, and then I have these two sort of full-size skeins. I'll bring the yarn closer, so you can see it. So here's what it looks like. So my friend Natalie described this color palette as very autumnal, and she is correct. Here's the other skein. Try to get this so you can kind of see the colors. Here's the other skein. So it's very like rich with oranges and blues and purples and pinks, very autumnal. And then I had the idea that I was just like, what if I was only going to spin the contrast color. I will say that. So I went ransacking through my stash, pulled two colors, and I spun this. This is my first time spinning Combs Top long draw. Normally I spin all my top worsted, or at least semi-worsted with a short forward or continuous back. But I thought it would be fun to, since I was spinning it on my flat iron, to spin it long draw and really maximize the loft and the squish of the Polworth. And so while that did not yield my most consistent spinning, because I need practice spinning long draw from top, and also I just need practice spinning, period. Like I've been on a bit of a spinning hiatus. So while this didn't yield my most consistent spinning, I love this yarn. Having spun Polworth before, and actually knit with Polworth before, this woolen spun, well, I guess it's semi-woolen because it's a worsted prep that I spun woolen. So this semi-woolen yarn is super squishy, super airy, super bouncy, super lofty. It's going to knit up beautifully. It's so stinking soft. I really want to experiment with spinning more top long draw. I mean, obviously it would be nice to get a more consistent yarn. It's not necessarily thick and thin, but there are just some places that it's a little bit finer than others. It's all going to block out and knit up in the end, and it's mosaic, so like all that stuff will disappear. But I was talking to Danny, and Danny was like, oh, I have to figure out what fleece I'm going to spin for my main color. And then I was just like, oh, I could also spin for my main color. So my intention was to use Harrisville. Hold the phone. My intention was to use Harrisville for my main color, which is what Thea's sample was written in, and is what the pattern is written in. And I actually have a sweater quantity of Nightshades in Insomnia, which is the one that's a little bit green, and I thought that would pair really well with this. So my intention was to just spin up the main color, and then Danny started talking about spinning fleece, and I have so much. And so I decided to spin up a sample. So this is Dixie. Dixie is a CVM and Shetland cross. I spun up 8 grams of her fleece to 1, check grist, and 2, knit a sample. Now, Dixie, I only have a little bit of her fleece left because I've shared some of it with friends, and I carded it all up, and I have 380 grams. So when I spun up my sample at this grist, Tori, stop that, please. So I spun up my sample, and my grist for this yarn was 1,275 yards per pound, and I have 380 grams. So quick math would yield 1,100 yards of yarn if I spun it exactly this way, which I spun my default yarn. So I could easily spin this exactly this way. This is literally my default yarn, and I chain plied it to mimic a 3-ply yarn. I could do this in my sleep. So I have 1,100 yards worth of fiber, and the pattern for my size calls for 1,000 yards. So we are full speed ahead on this project. So I did knit and block a swatch, and I will show you what my swatch looks like, because I'm really excited about this. So here's the swatch. So this is the pattern. Now, I love this area up here where it's just super low contrast, where you can't even see the contrast color. That's what I'm most excited about. I'm very excited about the low contrast areas in that skein when it goes blue and purple and that like dark muddy teal. I am very excited about that, paired with the areas where it's a little bit higher contrast. So like I do love, like I love it so much. Now here's the other thing that I really like about this, which is not what Thea designed. Because of the texture of Dixie, she has a lot of that like CVM loft and that CVM squish. That texture disparity is making a really, so you can kind of see, let's see if I can show it to you. You can kind of see the texture. Now they're both 3-ply yarns, but I think just because Dixie is a woolen prep, and the top is worsted and the top is commercial and all these other things, they yield yarns of 2 very different character. And even though they're the same wraps per inch, or close enough to the same wraps per inch, because one is a fully woolen yarn and one's a semi-woolen, semi-worsted yarn, the yarns are very different. And you can see it in the swatch. Like Dixie's yarn is just like really round and takes up a lot of space. And the top, even though it's spun semi-woolen, it's just kind of smooth and lays flat, and it adds a really interesting textural component to the yarn in addition to the fun color changing aspect of it. So I'm very excited. I'm very excited about this project. Very excited about casting this on. So I have my contrast color spun up. Obviously I showed it to you. I have to spin just under 400 grams of Dixie's. My plan is to take all of my fiber and split it across 6 bobbins so then I can do a 3-ply yarn instead of like just spinning it until I run out and changing bobbins and then having to like mix things up at the end. I think if I do the math at the beginning and split it into 6 bobbins, then I can spin, you know, this section, this section, this section, ply it up and mix up the bobbins as I ply it up, and then hopefully end up with like close to 1,100 yards of yarn. I did check my grist after I washed it, and Dixie did shrink a little bit. So I'm glad that I went through. This is why sweater spinning is, when you do sweater spinning, this is why the sampling and the planning is important, because you don't want to start a whole project and then run out. Ask me how I know. So I did go through all the effort of swatching, well, I guess sampling. I spun it at 2 different ratios to make sure that I liked the yarn. So sampling, checking my grist, finishing my yarn, checking my grist again, and knitting a swatch. I am like perfectly on gauge. The pattern was written on 6s. This is knit on 6s. I am perfectly on gauge. This is going to be such a fun sweater come the autumn. I'm not going to have it done for this winter, obviously. I have spinning to do, but this is going to be such a fun sweater come autumn. And I love this. I love the way Dixie feels. The CVM really comes through in her yarn. She's like delightfully toothy from the Shetland, but still has that like softness and that bulk that like people really look for CVM yarns. I also like that it's a little bit brown. It's kind of like an off black because there are no natural blacks. You know, there's no true blacks in nature, right? Like everything is a little bit off. And I do like that it's like a brownish, like almost brown gray versus like the true black of like the Harrisville yarns. I'm very glad that I'm spinning for the entire thing. Also, look at this little swatch. I'm so pleased. So yeah, so those are my 2 handspun sweaters coming down the pike. The next thing that I'm going to start spinning for when I finish spinning for this is the Anjou Slipover by Skeiny Dipping. Because I have Melody shared Legion's fleece with me, and I have exactly the right number of the main, like in terms of yardage, I have the right amount of yardage in the main color if I use Legion's fleece. So then I have to pick a contrast color. And I think what I'm going to do is spin up some BFL silk braids I have from Bramble Ridge to do another low contrast. I feel like if I'm going to do mosaic knitting with a color shifting yarn, low contrast is probably my speed these days. And I do like that there's places where it's higher contrast and then it immediately disappears into the areas of lower contrast. I think it's just going to make a really fun sweater. So those are my future plans. So my plan is to, as soon as I'm finished with my Felia, cast on the Rust Pullover in Marge's yarn. I did go ahead and hand my metamorphic sweater to my friend who is going to pick up my bind off. So the plan is to finish my stick season and then go back to my Rust Pullover, my metamorphic. And I think once I finish my study session, I think my plan is to cast on my Luma by Sari Nordland. So those are the 3 sweaters down the pike that you might eventually start seeing while I'll be spinning for the potato vodka. I didn't make any progress on my autumn alpine in the last 2 weeks. That's why you haven't seen it. I've just been furiously knitting on the other 2, and I just have not really been inspired to work on my autumn alpine. And I think that's why I really enjoy having multiple projects that I can choose from so that I'm not forcing myself to work on a thing that's not really sparking joy. So you haven't seen my autumn alpine this week because I have not made any progress on it, but I did make lots of progress on my other 4 knits. So there we go. And I did some spinning. It's been a great 2 weeks in terms of like making and crafting. It's been a great 2 weeks. So the last thing in terms of things that sparked joy, my husband and I have started watching an anime called The Apothecary Diaries. I almost forgot the name of it. And fully all in. It is an incredible story. If you have Crunchyroll, that's where we're watching it. It's an incredible story. I was like, literally like 2 weeks ago, I go through these like fits where I want to have something on the TV, but I don't want to watch anything that I have been watching, and I don't want to watch anything that requires too much effort from me, and I don't want to watch anything that'll make me think. So those days, I go to Crunchyroll, and most of the time I end up watching, we will not talk about the amount of times I've watched Jujutsu Kaisen at this point. I routinely just watch anime that I've already watched when I'm just like, I just need background noise, and I don't want anything that's going to ask too much from me. And I went scrolling through the slice of life section and I saw the little art for the Apothecary Diaries, and I was just like, oh, this sounds like a good vibe. And Joshua, I don't even think Joshua was terribly enthused about it until it started, and then he was like, this is crazy. It's set in feudal, I'm not sure if it's China or Japan. I'm going to be quite honest. I'm not sure if it's China or Japan because they both have emperors. The show has not been deliberately clear about whether it's China or Japan. And it's this woman gets kidnapped and like sold into service into like the emperor's concubine's palace. And then shenanigans ensue. Of course, she is incredibly smart and she's an apothecary and she's out there saving and changing lives. It's a great show. It's a great show. If you have Crunchyroll and you like anime and you like slice of life, it's a great show. I will say, everyone told me I should read Under the Whispering Door after I talked about The House in the Cerulean Sea. Also, I love how many of you have read The House in the Cerulean Sea, and I love how many of you are about to pick it up. It's a great book. Go read it. I have requested Under the Whispering Door from my library. They're like 21 weeks ahead of me. So I think eventually I'm just going to cave and I'm probably going to buy it. I'm going to buy it. And I think I have so many Audible credits, so I might just get it on audio and listen to it as I work. I've also been listening to a lot of podcasts, but I'm not sure that those podcasts spark joy because all they do is make me mad because I've been listening to a lot of like news podcasts and like legal podcasts and trying to stay informed and like on top of what's happening. And I don't know that that counts as sparking joy. They do make me laugh. I listen to a lot of things with like dark humor. They make me laugh as well as they make me think, but like, they're not the right tone for this sort of thing. But I do have a bunch of audiobook credits, so I might get Under the Whispering Door sometime next week, and we'll probably talk about it immediately because I had such feelings about The House in the Cerulean Sea, and all of you raved about Under the Whispering Door, which is a book by T.J. Klune, if I didn't already say. But I think that's it, y'all. That's it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I think this episode was shorter than last time. I think this episode was shorter than last time. So thanks so much for hanging out with me. Let me know in the comments what you're making, what you're working on, what's bringing you joy. Oh, housekeeping. If you want to spin for the potato vodka. Oh gosh, I just gave myself a corneal abrasion. Oh no, hold the phone. It is incredibly ironic that I, as an eye nurse that works in an ophthalmic surgery center and literally takes care of eyeballs all day, I am always giving myself near corneal abrasions by doing this, literally waving things near my eyes. And you think that as someone whose job it is literally to take care of eyeballs, I would be more precious about my own. But that, unfortunately, is not true, and this hurts. So as soon as I'm done filming, I might have to go and look in the mirror and make sure I didn't, in fact, give myself a corneal abrasion. Anyways, if you want to spin for one of these with me, I'm not exactly hosting, because I'm not good at hosting, but if you want to, I have a hashtag on Instagram, potato vodka salcal, and I did start a Ravelry thread, potato vodka salcal, if you're not on Instagram. If you want to spin for one of these and you just want company, there are a few people who already said that they're going to spin for one, so like if you decide you want to spin for one and you want company and you want to see what people are doing, you can use the hashtag on Instagram or you can share in the Ravelry thread. I will try to remember to share my progress as I'm working on mine. But a bunch of people were talking about spinning for one, and I was like, oh, cool, what if we all posted our spinning in the same place so we could see what everyone's doing, and so we could just be excited about other people's making, because the world is terrible, and joy is an act of resistance, and making is an act of resistance, and man, they want to take a lot from us, but they can't take this. So, if you want to join us, and by us, I mean me, because I don't really know who else is doing it. I know Natalie's doing it, and I know Danny's doing it. So if you want to join Natalie, Danny, and I, and whoever else is going along in this adventure, hashtag potato vodka salcal, the link to the Ravelry thread will be in the description box. That's it. I was like, I had something else that I wanted to say, and it was that. Like, make one of these with me if you want. Only do what you want. Only do what you want. No one's your boss. No one's your boss. Do what you want. So yes, that's it. If you enjoyed I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me. I was going to say, if you enjoyed hanging out with me. I guess if you enjoyed hanging out with me, hit the subscribe button. I am all sorts of discombobulated after I whacked myself in the eye. I'm glad that happened at the end. But I hope you enjoyed spending this time with me. I hope you're making something that brings you joy and fills you right up. And until next time, I love you. Go make something fun today.